A grave in autumn light, pale sky, a small town wrapped tight around a hole in the ground. Pine trees lean in like witnesses. White birches stand further back. And there, 60 yards out, half hidden in the trunks, a man in a dark coat watches the burial. He does not pray. He does not move. He just watches. A widower at the graveside. Wide shoulders. Empty eyes. Beside his boot, a German shepherd lifts his head. The dog has seen the man in the trees. The man steps back. Vanishes. A hand falls on the dog's neck. Steady. Trained. The kind of hand that has done quiet, terrible work in places without names. In the man's coat pocket sits an iron key he did not know existed yesterday. And 40 miles north in a cabin no one is supposed to know about, white flowers are slowly closing for the night. Something has already been waiting for her to be gone. The morning Eleanor Mercer was buried, the sky over Cedar Hollow looked washed clean. Pale. Empty. Like somebody had scrubbed it raw and forgotten to put the color back. Caleb Mercer stood at the edge of the open grave. 43 years old. 6 feet of carved muscle and quiet damage. His shoulders held the kind of stillness only men trained to wait could hold. His blue-gray eyes had not moved in 20 minutes. He did not cry. He wanted to. He couldn't. The pastor said something about ashes, about the Lord's house, about being held. The words landed somewhere far away in a room Caleb couldn't quite reach. He nodded when other people nodded. He folded his hands when other people folded theirs. Because that was what you did. That was the script. And Caleb Mercer was very good at scripts. At his left side stood Ranger, 5 years old, black and tan, lean the way working dogs are lean, with ears that never fully relaxed. The German Shepherd had been a military K-9 once. Bomb detection, 2 deployments, a scar along his right shoulder from a piece of shrapnel nobody talked about anymore. Ranger did not look at the casket. Ranger looked at the trees. Caleb noticed. He always noticed. Because Ranger was looking at something nobody else could see. A man stood maybe 60 yards back, half hidden behind the white birches at the cemetery line. Tall, lean, a dark coat that didn't match the weather. He wasn't moving. He wasn't praying. He was just watching. Caleb's jaw tightened. Just a fraction. He turned his head slow, the way you do when you don't want anyone to know you've seen them. The man stepped back. Into the trees. Gone. Ranger let out a low breath through his nose. Not a growl. Not yet. Just a warning of a warning. Caleb rested his hand on the dog's head. "I know," he murmured. "I see him too." The pastor finished. The coffin lowered. The funeral director offered a handful of dirt from a small brass bowl. Caleb took it, held it, let it fall. Eleanor Mercer disappeared 1 inch at a time, and Caleb felt for the first time the thing he had been afraid of. Nothing. Not grief, not relief, not anger. Just a long, cold quiet where his heart used to be. The town of Cedar Hollow was small enough that everyone knew where Silas Whitman's office was, and old enough that nobody asked why he still worked from the same little brick building he'd worked from for 40 years. The office smelled like paper. Old paper. Pencil shavings. A faint trace of pipe tobacco, even though Silas had quit smoking 16 years ago. Caleb stepped inside. Ranger walked at heel, no leash. He never needed one. The receptionist, a thin woman with tired eyes, lifted her chin toward the back hallway. She didn't say a word. People in Cedar Hollow had stopped knowing what to say to Caleb Mercer about a week ago. He walked the hallway. He opened the door. And there was Trevor Lang, already in the chair, already smiling. Caleb stopped in the doorway, just for half a second. Trevor Lang was 48 years old, lean in a way that wasn't earned, and dressed in a charcoal coat that looked too clean for a town where the rain carried red clay. His dark hair was combed back with the kind of care a man only learns in cities. His eyes were the same gray as Eleanor's. That was the worst part. "Caleb," Trevor said, smooth, like he'd been practicing. Caleb said nothing. Behind the desk sat Silas Whitman, late 70s, white hair neatly combed, a face that had carried other people's grief so long it had become part of his skin. "Mr. Mercer," Silas said soft. "Please sit." Caleb sat. Ranger lowered himself beside the chair, did not lie down, sat, upright, watching Trevor. Trevor noticed. Trevor pretended not to. "I'm so sorry for your loss," Silas said. "Eleanor was a remarkable woman." "Yes," Caleb said, "that was all." Silas opened a folder. Slow, careful. The way you open a thing that might bite. "Your wife's will is brief," he said. "Most of the estate transfers to you automatically. The house, the savings, the insurance." Caleb nodded once. "But there is a separate bequest," Silas said, "specifically for you, held outside the standard estate." He reached into the folder. He placed two objects on the desk. A small iron key, old, hand-forged, the kind you don't see anymore, and a map, hand-drawn, folded in fourths, the paper soft with age. Caleb stared at them. Trevor laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Oh, come on," Trevor said. "Tell me she didn't." Silas did not look at him. "There is also a property," Silas continued, "a parcel of land in the northern ridge, approximately 40 acres, includes a structure." "A shack," Trevor said. "It's a shack. I've seen the deed. Middle of nowhere. No road, no power, nothing." Caleb turned his head slow and looked at his wife's cousin for the first time since walking in. "You've seen the deed." Trevor's smile flickered. "Just for a second." "Years ago. Family stuff." "Family stuff," Caleb repeated. "Yeah. Funny." "What's funny?" "She never mentioned you and her did any family stuff." Trevor's jaw worked. He recovered fast. The smile came back thinner. "Well, she had her little secrets, didn't she?" Ranger made a sound. Low, in the chest, not loud. "Not yet." Trevor stiffened. "Control your dog." "He's controlled," Caleb said. "He's growling. He's noticing." Silas cleared his throat. A polite little sound. The kind a man uses when he has spent 40 years in rooms where men want to fight and women want to leave. "The key fits a lock on the property," Silas said. "The map indicates the location. Your wife wished for you to visit. Alone." He paused. Her words. Alone. Caleb picked up the key. It was heavier than it looked. Cool. Solid. Real. He unfolded the map. A line of trees. A bend in a river. A narrow path. An X. He had never been there. He knew that. But something about the lines, the way they curved, the way the X sat between two ridges, something in him recognized it. Like a song you've never heard but somehow know the chorus of. Trevor leaned forward. "Listen," he said. "Caleb, cousin to cousin." He smiled like a man trying to sell a used car. "Whatever's out there, it's not worth the trip. Trust me. The land's nothing. The cabin's falling down. You go up there, you'll just upset yourself. You've been through enough." Caleb did not lift his eyes from the map. "You said you saw the deed years ago." "That's right." "Then how do you know the cabin's falling down?" Silence, a beat too long. Trevor laughed again. "Forced." "I'm just saying, man. Common sense. 40 acres of nothing in the middle of nowhere. What do you think's gonna be there? A palace?" Caleb folded the map, put it in his coat pocket, picked up the key, closed his fist around it. "Thank you, Silas." He stood. Ranger stood with him. Trevor stood last. Too fast. "Caleb, hey. At least let me come with you. I'm family. I can help." "You can," Caleb said. "Yeah. You can sit down." He turned. He walked out. Ranger walked behind him, the click of his nails on the wood floor, the only sound in the hallway. Behind them in the office, Trevor Lang said something under his breath that Silas Whitman pretended not to hear. The house felt wrong. Caleb stood in the front hall for a full minute before he could make himself walk further in. Every object looked the way it had looked a week ago. The umbrella stand, the framed photograph of the lake, the hook where Eleanor always hung her gardening coat. But the air was different. Air remembers. That was the thing nobody told you. Air remembers when somebody stops breathing in it. Caleb walked into the kitchen. 2 mugs sat on the counter. His, black, chipped on the rim. He had been using it for 12 years. Hers. White ceramic. Hand-painted sunflowers around the lip. A faint ring of dried tea at the bottom. She had used it the morning she went into the hospital. She had not come home to wash it. Caleb stood there a long time. He did not touch the mug. Ranger sat at his feet, quiet, patient. The dog could wait forever. Caleb finally moved. He opened the cabinet above the stove. There, behind the cooking oil, a small glass jar, loose leaves, dark, a few curls of something dried and yellow, a faint sweet smell when you brought it close. Eleanor's tea. She had made him a cup every evening for the last 6 years, since he came back from his last deployment with a lower back that had decided to never stop talking to him. He used to joke about it. He called it her witch's brew. She'd smile and say, "Drink it, Mercer." And he would, because she asked, because her hand on his shoulder felt like the only place his body didn't hurt. He never asked what was in it. He thought it was chamomile, or some kind of herbal mix she picked up at the grocery store. He thought it was just tea. He set the jar down on the counter, slow like it might break. Then he sat at the kitchen table, and he did not move for an hour. Ranger laid his head on Caleb's foot. The dog did not sleep. The dog waited. That night, Caleb walked through every room. He didn't know what he was looking for. He found things. He found Eleanor's reading glasses tucked into a book about wildflowers. The corner of page 87 was folded down. He found a small notebook in the drawer of her nightstand. The cover said groceries. Inside the first 3 pages were grocery lists. The 4th page was a sketch of a leaf, detailed, veined, beautifully drawn. He found in the back of her closet a pair of hiking boots he had never seen before. The soles were caked with dirt the color of clay. The laces were tied tight. The boots had been used, a lot. He sat on the edge of the bed, the boots in his hands. He had been married to this woman for 19 years. He had not known she owned these boots. "Where were you going?" he whispered. Ranger walked into the bedroom, stopped at the foot of the bed, looked up at him. Caleb met the dog's eyes. "And were you with her?" Ranger's tail moved. Once. Just once. Caleb closed his eyes. The drive into the northern ridge took 2 hours and 40 minutes. The last 20 of those minutes were on a road that didn't deserve to be called a road. It was a suggestion. A scratch through the trees. The truck rattled over roots and rocks. Ranger sat in the passenger seat, ears forward, body braced. The dog was not nervous. The dog was familiar. Caleb saw it. He kept seeing it. The way Ranger's head tilted at certain turns. The way his ears moved at the sound of a particular bird call. The way he leaned slightly to the left before Caleb had even seen the next bend. Caleb's hands tightened on the wheel. "You've been here before," he said. The dog did not answer. The dog did not need to. The truck climbed. The pines grew thicker. The light through the branches turned soft and green the way light does when it has to fight to reach the ground. And then the road ended. Just stopped. A wall of trees. A patch of grass. Nothing else. Caleb killed the engine. Silence rushed in. A bird called somewhere far above. A branch creaked. He got out. Ranger jumped down behind him. The dog did not sniff the air the way dogs do in new places. The dog walked, straight forward, like he knew exactly where he was going. Caleb followed. 20 steps in the trees opened, and Caleb stopped breathing. A clearing, soft grass, late wildflowers, the last of the autumn ones, white and purple and pale yellow. A small stream cut through one edge, catching the light. The air smelled of something sweet, jasmine almost. Not quite, something he couldn't name. And in the middle of the clearing, a cabin. It was not falling down. It was alive. Vines covered every wall. Thick green rope twisting around the eaves, climbing the chimney, framing the small windows. White flowers in clusters at the door. Purple blooms at the window frames. Moss along the foundation, soft and bright. The vines were not wild. Caleb saw it immediately. They had been trained, guided, tied with small lengths of brown twine in places almost invisible unless you were looking. Some of the twine was old. Some of it looked new. Somebody had been here. Recently. His chest tightened. He stepped forward slow. Ranger walked ahead, stopped at the door, sat, waiting. Caleb came up beside him. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the iron key. His hand was steady. He made sure of that. He pushed the vines aside. There was the door. Old, heavy, hand-cut wood dark with weather. A black iron lock at its center. He slid the key in. It fit. Of course it fit. He turned it. Click. A small, deep sound, like a heartbeat starting again. He pushed. The door resisted, just for a second, then gave. A soft shower of white petals drifted down from the vines above the doorway, caught in the slant of afternoon light, settled at his feet, and the smell hit him. Sweet, warm, familiar. His breath caught. He had smelled this before, on Eleanor's hair in the evenings when she came in from running errands, on the cuffs of her sweater, in the tea. He closed his eyes. For a second, he was back in the kitchen. Eleanor was setting the mug down in front of him. Sunflowers on the rim, her hand on his shoulder. Drink it, Mercer. He opened his eyes. He stepped inside. The inside of the cabin was nothing he had expected. It was clean, not abandoned clean, lived in clean, cared for clean. A single room, maybe 20 by 25 feet. Wooden floors swept. A small iron stove in one corner. A table in the center scarred but solid. 2 chairs. A narrow cot along one wall made up with a folded gray blanket. And the walls. Shelves. Floor to ceiling. Every shelf full. Glass jars. Hundreds of them. Each labeled in Eleanor's small, careful handwriting. Dried leaves in some. Powders in others. A few held dark liquids that caught the light like old wine. Bundles of dried plants hung from the rafters in rows. Some he recognized. Lavender, sage. Most he did not. On the far wall, a row of notebooks. Dozens. The spines marked with years. Caleb walked to them slow. He ran his fingers along the spines. The oldest year was 12 years ago. The most recent was this year, 3 months ago. He pulled out the oldest one, opened it. Eleanor's handwriting. Less precise than the labels. Looser, younger. He read the first line. I don't know if this will work. I don't even know if I understand enough yet. But I can't sit and watch him get worse. Caleb's hand froze on the page. Him. He kept reading. He doesn't say it hurts. He never says. But I see it. When he stands up from the couch. When he reaches for the top shelf. When he thinks I'm not looking. He breathes wrong and his jaw goes tight and he sits back down a little slower than he means to. He thinks I don't see. I see everything. The doctors give him pills he won't take. They make him slow. He says he didn't survive what he survived to spend the rest of his life half asleep. So, if he won't take what they give him, maybe I can give him something he doesn't know he's taking. Caleb sat down. He didn't choose to. His legs just stopped working. He sat on the edge of the cot and he kept reading, page after page. A woman alone in a cabin in the woods learning, failing, trying again, drying plants, crushing leaves, testing extractions, burning her fingers on the stove, writing in tight, frustrated handwriting at midnight. Failed again. Bitter. Too strong. He'd taste it. Need something he won't notice. Tea. Tea, maybe. Caleb closed the notebook. He closed his eyes. His hand was trembling. He hadn't noticed. Ranger walked over, sat, pressed his shoulder against Caleb's leg. The dog did not whine. The dog did not move. The dog just held him there, with his weight, with his presence, the way he had held men on the battlefield when they could not stand up. 12 years, Caleb whispered. His voice did not sound like his. You did this for 12 years. He stood up eventually. He had to. Standing was something he knew how to do. He walked the cabin slowly. He looked at the jars, the labels. Calming evening 3 drops. Pain mild brewed. Sleep deep dilute. He looked at the bundles of dried plants hanging from the rafters. He looked at the small wooden box on the table, the lid carved with a single flower. He opened it. Inside a brown envelope. His name on it. Caleb. In Eleanor's handwriting. He stared at it for a long time. He did not open it. Not yet. He set the envelope back in the box, closed the lid. He needed a minute in air. He walked out of the cabin. The clearing was bright. The afternoon light was starting to slant toward gold. Bees moved through the wildflowers. A bird called somewhere in the high branches. He walked the perimeter of the cabin, slowly, the way he had walked perimeters in places that wanted him dead. He noticed things. A small spade leaning against the back wall, the handle worn smooth from use. A patch of disturbed earth near the chimney. Soft, recently moved, a coil of twine on a hook, a tin watering can. This was not the workspace of a woman who came up here once a year. This was the workspace of a woman who came up here every week. Maybe more. For 12 years. How? How had he not known? He pressed the heel of his hand against his eyes. A long time ago, a man older than Caleb had said something to him in a base mess hall on the other side of the world. The thing about the people you love, son, you think you know them. And you know about 90% of them. The other 10%. That's where they live. Caleb had laughed it off at the time. He wasn't laughing now. He went back inside. He walked to the center of the room. He stopped. Ranger walked past him, past the table, past the cot. Stopped at a spot of floor near the back wall. The dog lowered his nose. He sniffed once. Then he did something Caleb had not seen him do in 5 years. He laid down. Not casually. Not like a tired dog finding a soft spot. He laid down flat, belly to the boards, head between his paws, ears slightly forward. The exact same way he used to lay down in the field when he had found something buried. Caleb's heart stopped. He walked over. Slow. He crouched. He pressed his palm flat to the wooden floor. The sound under his hand when he tapped was wrong. Hollow. He pressed harder, ran his fingers along the seams. There. A floorboard. Not nailed, just fitted. He worked his fingernails into the seam. Lifted. It came up clean. A small dark space underneath. In the space, a metal box, the size of a hardback book. Black. Plain. A simple latch on the front. Caleb did not breathe. He lifted the box out. He set it on the floor. He did not open it yet. He looked at Ranger. The dog had not moved. The dog was watching him with a look Caleb had only seen on people. People who knew something terrible and were waiting for you to catch up. You knew, Caleb said. His voice cracked just at the edge. You knew this was here. Ranger blinked slow. His tail tapped the floor. Once, twice, Caleb let out a sound that wasn't a word. Wasn't a sob either. Something in between. A noise from a part of him he hadn't visited in a long time. He opened the box. Inside was another notebook. Smaller, older, leather-bound, the leather worn soft. And under the notebook, a stack of sealed envelopes. Maybe 20 of them, each with a name written on the front. L. Brooks, M. Doyle, R. Vance, T. Halloran, K. Carter. He stared at the names. He didn't know any of them. He picked up the leather notebook. He opened the first page. It wasn't a date. It was a list. Names, dates, notes. L. Brooks, first visit March, lower back, combat injury 1991. Provided sample blend A3. Follow-up in 2 weeks, R. Vance. First visit May, chronic nerve pain neck and shoulder. Provided diluted B1, M. Doyle. First visit October. Husband KIA. Sleep impossible 6 years. Provided evening blend. C2. Caleb's throat went dry. These were not experiments. These were patients. He kept turning pages. Year after year, the list grew. The notes grew. L. Brooks reports significant reduction. No pills needed for 2 weeks. R. Vance sleeping through the night for the first time since 1995. M. Doyle came back today. She cried in the doorway. I held her for 20 minutes. Caleb closed the notebook. He pressed it against his chest. He sat on the floor of his dead wife's cabin, and he made a sound he had not made in 19 years. Ranger crawled across the boards on his belly and pressed his whole body against Caleb's side. The dog did not move for a long time. Outside, the wind shifted in the trees. A few white petals drifted past the open door. And somewhere far off, hidden in the line of birch, A man in a dark coat watched the cabin through a pair of binoculars, lowered them, and walked away. It was nearly dark when Caleb finally opened the envelope with his name on it. He sat at the table, the lantern on the wall threw a low, warm light. Ranger lay at his feet, head on his paws, eyes open. The envelope was thin, inside a single folded page. He opened it. Eleanor's handwriting. Careful, steady, the way she wrote when she meant every word. He read it slow. Caleb, if you are reading this, then I'm gone, and you found the cabin and the dog took you to the floorboard. Good. I knew he would. He is very smart and he loves you more than he loves me, which is fair because you loved him first. I have to say a few things to you. I'm going to try to say them in order. I have been practicing. 1. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I almost told you 1,000 times. Every time you sat down on the porch in the evening and your shoulders went a little soft after the tea, I almost said it. But you were always so proud of your strength, Mercer and I was afraid that if you knew, you would refuse to drink it. Out of pride, out of stubbornness, out of that beautiful, hard-headed thing in you that has kept you alive in places I will never see. So I lied. Every evening. And I'm sorry. 2. I never meant to keep a secret. I meant to build a thing for one person, and that one person was you. Then a woman knocked on this cabin door 6 years ago. She had heard about me from someone. I still don't know who. She had not slept in 6 years. She asked me for help, and I could not say no. After her, there was another, and then another. They came quietly. They left quietly. They told me I had given them their lives back. 3. I want you to keep doing this. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say you're not a doctor, you're not a botanist, you don't know plants, you don't know people even half the time. I know you, Mercer. I know what you say, but I also know what you are. I know what's in your chest. I know how patient you really are when nobody's looking. I know the way you sat with Ranger for 6 weeks when he came back broken from his last tour, and I know what that did for him. You think you're a weapon? You're not. You never were. You were just used like one. 4. There is a woman you need to call. Her name is in the back of this notebook. She knows what to do. Trust her. She is a friend. 5. There is a woman named Adelaide Doyle. She lives 40 miles south of here on a farm with a blue mailbox. She will know things about me that you do not know. Go see her when you are ready, not before. 6. Caleb stopped. He had to. His vision had blurred. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand hard the way men do when they have not learned how to cry properly. He kept reading. 6. You are going to be all right. You don't believe me. I know. You think the world ended yesterday. You think you ended yesterday. You are sitting in my cabin right now, and your hands are shaking, and you are wondering how a man is supposed to keep breathing in a room that smells like his dead wife's work. You keep breathing, Mercer. One breath, then another. That's all it ever was. You taught me that. 7. I love you. I loved you the day I met you in the rain outside that gas station in Asheville, and I loved you 19 years later when they put the IV in my arm, and I knew I wasn't coming home. I have loved you for so long, I don't know how to be a person without it. I don't have to learn. I get to skip that part. You have to learn. I'm sorry. I will be in the trees, Caleb. I will be in the white flowers. I will be in the tea. I will be in the dog. I will be in the morning when you can't sleep and the afternoon when you forget for a second and then remember. I will be everywhere. Drink your tea, Mercer. Eleanor. Caleb set the letter down. He laid both his hands flat on the table. He looked at the lantern. He looked at the jars. He looked at the bundles of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. He looked at Ranger, who was already looking at him. And then Caleb Mercer, 43 years old, decorated SEAL, the man who had walked out of 3 places no human being is supposed to walk out of, put his head down on the table in his dead wife's cabin and cried. Not for grief exactly, for shame. For 19 years of mornings, he had drunk her tea and not asked what was in it. For 12 years of weekends, she had come home with dirt on her sleeves, and he had not asked where she'd been. For all the ways he had looked at the woman he loved most in the world and seen only the 10% she'd showed him. He cried for a long time. Ranger did not move. Outside, the last of the daylight went. The clearing got dark. The white flowers on the cabin walls closed for the night one by one, the way they always did. Sometime around midnight, Caleb stood up. His face was raw, his eyes burned, but something in his chest had changed shape. He walked to the back of the leather notebook the way Eleanor had told him. There on the last page was a name, a phone number, and one line of writing. Dr. Marlowe Cross. She knew. She helped. If something happens, call her. Caleb stared at the words. If something happens. Not when I die. If something happens. His jaw tightened. He looked again. The handwriting on this page was newer. The ink was darker. Eleanor had written this not long before she got sick. Caleb folded the notebook closed. He set it on the table. He looked at Ranger. Something happened, he said quietly. The dog's ears lifted. Caleb walked to the door of the cabin, pushed it open, stepped out into the dark clearing. The air was cold and clean. The stars were thick above the trees, the way stars only are in places where towns don't reach. He stood there for a long moment. He looked back at the cabin at the soft glow of the lantern through the window. He thought of Eleanor's words, "Drink your tea, Mercer." He thought of a tall man in a dark coat at the edge of a cemetery 60 yards back watching. He thought of Trevor Lang's smile in the lawyer's office. Whatever's out there, it's not worth the trip. How had Trevor known the cabin was falling down? He'd never been there. The deed was just paper. Paper does not tell you a roof is collapsing, unless somebody told him. Unless somebody told Trevor what was in the cabin, and Trevor lied about it on purpose. Caleb stood very still in the dark. A small, cold thought walked up his spine. What if Eleanor's cancer wasn't just cancer? What if it was something else? What if someone had wanted her work and her gone? He shook his head. No, he was tired. He was grieving. He was making shapes out of shadows. That was what grief did. It made every passing car a hearse and every closed door a coffin. He took a slow breath. He went back inside. He sat at the table. He picked up the small wooden box again, the one that had held Eleanor's letter. He noticed something he had missed, a small slip of paper tucked under the velvet lining of the box, almost invisible. He pulled it out. 3 words, in Eleanor's handwriting. Trust the dog. Caleb stared at the words. He looked over at Ranger. The dog was already looking at him, already up, already alert, already standing. The dog's ears were tilted not at Caleb but at the door. A sound, very faint. Outside, a footstep. Then another, slow, careful. Somebody trying not to be heard. Somebody outside the cabin. Ranger's lip pulled back. Just a fraction. He did not growl yet. He was making a choice. Caleb's hand moved without him telling it to. He reached up and turned the lantern down to nothing. The cabin went black. He could feel his pulse in his throat now. Not fast, slow, the way it always got when something was about to happen. He listened. The footstep came again, closer, maybe 10 feet from the door. Caleb did not move. The footsteps stopped. A long silence. Then very softly somebody outside the cabin spoke. A voice, low, not quite a whisper. Mercer. Caleb's breath stopped. The voice did not belong to Trevor Lang. The voice did not belong to anyone Caleb knew. But the voice knew his name. And out in the dark clearing where the white flowers had closed for the night and the stars hung thick above the pines, a stranger stood 3 steps from the door of Eleanor Mercer's cabin and waited for the man inside to open it. Ranger took 1 slow step forward and placed himself between Caleb and the door. The dog did not bark. The dog did not growl. The dog simply stood and waited. And in that black cabin in the middle of the northern woods, with his dead wife's letter on the table, and 12 years of secrets all around him, and a stranger breathing on the other side of the wood, Caleb Mercer understood for the first time that whatever Eleanor had built up here, somebody else knew about it, and they had been waiting for her to be gone. Caleb did not move. The dark in the cabin was complete, the kind of dark that has weight. He could hear his own heartbeat now, slow, even. The body remembering its old training. Outside, the person waited. Mercer, the voice said again, low, almost gentle. I know you're in there. The lantern was on a second ago. Caleb stayed silent. Ranger stood between him and the door. The dog's body was perfectly still. Not a tremor, not a sound. The hair along his spine was up. I'm not here to hurt you. Right. That was always what the ones who hurt you said first. I'm here because Eleanor asked me to come if she ever stopped writing. Caleb's breath caught, just for a second, then steadied. My name is Marlowe Cross, the voice said. I'm a doctor. Your wife was my friend. A pause. I'm a woman, Mercer. I'm 5'3". I'm standing here in a parka and I'm freezing. If you're going to shoot me, please do it through the door so I don't have to wait. A long silence. Caleb let out one slow breath. He had assumed a man's voice, maybe because of the cold, maybe because of what he'd been bracing for, maybe because half the time when the threat came in his old life, it had a man's voice. But the voice on the other side of the door wasn't quite a man's. It was low, steady, a little dry. The voice of a person who had been a doctor for a long time and learned how to talk to scared people without sounding scared themselves. Caleb looked down at Ranger. The dog had not moved, but the hair along his spine had eased, just slightly. The dog was deciding. Caleb watched. Ranger lowered his head a fraction, took one step back from the door, sat. Caleb let his breath out. He walked to the door slow and unlatched it. He opened it 6 inches. Out in the clearing in the gray light just before dawn stood a woman in a green parka. Late 30s, maybe 40, compact build, dark hair tied back tight. A flashlight pointed at the ground, not at him. Her face was pale in the cold. Her eyes were sharp and very tired. A leather messenger bag at her hip. No weapon. No one behind her. She lifted her hands, slow, empty. Caleb Mercer, she said. I'm so sorry I scared you. I'm not scared, he said. She looked at him. She didn't argue. She didn't smile either. May I come in? He stepped aside. He turned the lantern back up. The warm light came back into the cabin. The jars, the dried herbs, the notebooks, the metal box on the floor with its lid open and the leather notebook on the table, and Eleanor's letter folded next to it. Marlowe Cross stepped inside and stopped. She looked around the room. Her face did something complicated. She wasn't surprised. Caleb could see that. She had been here before. She knew this place, but she was seeing it again. After. That was different. She let out a small breath, almost a laugh. Not quite. God, she said. Look at her. Caleb said nothing. Marlowe walked slowly along the shelves. Her fingers hovered above the jars, not touching. She read the labels under her breath. Her lips moved. Her eyes moved faster. She stopped at one jar, a small one, dark glass. She finished it, Marlowe whispered. Finished what? Marlowe turned, looked at him. The blend she was working on for the last 2 years. She said it wasn't ready. She said another 6 months. A beat. She finished it. Caleb looked at the jar. The label said only one word in Eleanor's small, careful hand. Ready. He turned away. He couldn't look at it. Marlowe set her messenger bag on the table, took off her gloves, took off her hat. Her hair was shorter than it looked in the photograph in the notebook. Practical. Cut for work, not for mirrors. She sat in one of the 2 chairs. She gestured at the other one. He didn't sit. She didn't push. How did you know to come tonight? He asked. I didn't know tonight, she said. I knew this week. How? She made me promise. If 3 Sundays passed without a letter from her, I was supposed to drive up to the cabin. She made me memorize the route. She wouldn't put it on a phone. Caleb sat down. He hadn't meant to. His legs had decided. 3 Sundays, he said. It's been 4. He looked at the table. She got sick fast, he said. I know. At the end. I know. A silence sat between them. Then Marlowe said very quietly, Caleb, I don't think she got sick the way you think she got sick. He looked up. She did not look away. She reached into the messenger bag. She pulled out a small folder. She set it on the table between them. He opened it. Lab results. He didn't understand most of it. He understood enough. His eyes moved across the numbers. There were 3 pages. The top of the 3rd page had a line drawn under one row of figures. The line was Marlowe's. She had drawn it in red pen. She had drawn it hard. A number in the column, higher than the others, much higher. Caleb didn't know what the number meant. He looked up. Translate. Heavy metals. In her blood. Yes. How? Not from food, not from water, not from anything in this cabin. I tested everything in this cabin. Twice. A pause. Somebody put it in her, Caleb, slowly, over months. Caleb sat very still. His hand was on the table. The hand did not move. Inside his chest, a different kind of stillness arrived. He recognized it. It was an old friend. It was the stillness from before bad things, the stillness from the second before a door went down. He had not felt it in a long time. He let himself feel it now. Who, he said. I don't know yet. Guess. I won't guess. Marlowe. I won't guess, Caleb. Not about this. He took a breath. He looked at the page again. He closed the folder. He set it down. Carefully. The way you set down something fragile. All right, he said. His voice was very level. Then we find out. She made coffee on the small iron stove. He let her. Watching a stranger move through Eleanor's cabin should have hurt. It did hurt, but it also did something else. It made the cabin a real place, a working place, a place where 2 people were now standing, not one ghost. Marlowe poured into 2 tin mugs. She handed him one. He stared at it. I know, she said quietly. I'm sorry, I'll find another cup if you want. It's not the cup. I know it's not the cup. He took a long sip. The coffee was very black and very bitter. He set it down. There were envelopes, he said. In the box, yes. Names, yes. You opened any? No, she nodded. Don't yet. The names matter, but only some of them. I want to look at them with you. Why? She set her own mug down, looked at him. Because 2 of those names, she said, died in the last 6 months. The cabin got very quiet. Caleb's jaw moved once. Same way, he said. Heart supposedly. Both of them. Both men. Both veterans. Both healthy before. Both her patients. Yes. Marlowe. Yes. Who else knew about this cabin? She held his eye. That's the question, isn't it? Dawn came up over the clearing. Pale gray, then pink, then real honest light soft and gold on the white flowers. Caleb and Marlowe sat at the table and went through the box of envelopes. 23 names. She knew most of them. He knew none of them. She marked the 2 who had died with a small star in the corner of each envelope. She held those 2 in her hand for a long second. She did not open them. She set them aside. Did Eleanor have any enemies? She said. Caleb almost laughed. Eleanor. I know. She apologized to spiders. I know. She fed crows. I know, Caleb. He shook his head. No, she didn't have enemies. All right, did she have someone? What kind of someone? Someone old. Someone who knew her work before she came here. Caleb went very still. A name surfaced in his mind, slowly, like a body in cold water. Trevor. Trevor what? Lang. Her cousin. He showed up at the will reading. He showed up at the lawyer's office. He laughed at the cabin, called it a shack. He's seen the cabin. He said no, he said he'd seen the deed, but he knew the roof was bad, except the roof isn't bad. Marlowe wrote something down on a small pad. Trevor Lang, mid-40s, city clothes, doesn't fit in this town. Acts like he came home for the will, but he's been here longer than that. I think he was at her funeral, from a distance, in the trees. You think? I'm pretty sure. Ranger was sure. She looked at the dog. The dog was on his side near the stove, asleep finally the way he only slept when the people in the room were safe. He's a good dog, she said. He is. Eleanor used to bring him up here. I met him in this cabin 3 different times. Caleb closed his eyes. He did not say anything for a long moment. He had thought he was past the part where new pieces of his marriage could still surprise him. He was wrong. How long had you known her? He asked. 8 years. 8. She came to a lecture I gave in Portland on plant chemistry. She asked one question. It was a smarter question than anyone else asked the entire week. I waited for her after. We had coffee. She told me about a husband. Marlowe stopped. Go on. She told me about a husband who came home from a deployment with a back that wasn't going to get better. She told me he wasn't taking his pills. She told me she was trying to help him without telling him. Caleb did not move. She wanted to know, Marlowe said, if what she was doing could hurt him. And what did you say? I told her no if she was careful and yes if she wasn't. So we started writing each other. And then she started sending me samples. And then she started sending me patient notes. And then she started sending me lives, Caleb. Real lives. People who weren't sleeping. People in chronic pain. Veterans like you mostly, but not only. She had a list. She knew exactly who needed what. She remembered everybody's anniversary. She remembered which one was a widow and which one had a daughter at college and which one liked his tea with lemon. Marlowe's voice was steady, the way the voice of a doctor is steady when she has practiced steadiness for a long time. Your wife, she said, was the best person I ever met. I know, Caleb said. He said it very quietly. I know. They worked through the morning. Marlowe made a list. Caleb made a different list. They cross-referenced. She had the names of the 2 dead patients. He had the timeline of his own treatment year by year from the leather notebook. He counted the years on his fingers like a man checking change. 12 years. 12 years of evenings he had thought were just evenings. Marlowe noticed him stop. What? She said. Nothing. Caleb? It's stupid. Say it. He looked at the jar on the table, the dark glass one. Ready. He looked at his own hands. All this time, he said, I thought I was getting better because I was healing. I thought my back was learning to live with itself. I thought I was just. He stopped. Tough. You are tough. Not the way I thought. You were both, Marlowe said. You were tough and you were loved. That doesn't cancel. It adds. He looked at her. She was a stranger. She had known his wife better than he had. He didn't know whether to thank her or break something. He just nodded. Around noon, Ranger lifted his head. Caleb saw it instantly. Marlowe saw him see it. They both went quiet. The dog rose, slow. He walked to the door. He did not growl. He sniffed at the gap under the wood. Caleb stood, walked to the window, eased the curtain aside. A black SUV was bumping up the last of the dirt track at the edge of the clearing. He recognized it. Trevor, he said. And someone else, Marlowe said. She was at the other window. Suit, older, driver. Stay inside. Caleb. Stay inside, Marlowe, just for now, please. She looked at him. She didn't like it. She did it anyway. She stepped back from the window. Caleb opened the door and walked out into the clearing. Ranger walked 1 step behind him and 1 step to the left, where he always walked. The SUV stopped at the edge of the wildflowers. Both doors open. Trevor Lang got out of the passenger side. Same charcoal coat, same combed hair, a small scratch on his jaw he hadn't had at the lawyer's office. The driver took longer. He was tall, 50 maybe, black overcoat expensive, salt and pepper hair cut close, a clean-shaven face that practiced expressions for a living. He moved the way men move when they have been told by very expensive people that their time is more important than yours. Mr. Mercer, the driver said. He smiled. The smile did not touch any other part of his face. I'm Jonathan Reeve. May I offer my condolences? No, Caleb said. Reeve's smile held, barely. All right then, may we talk? You can talk, I can listen. That's all I'm doing. Fair enough. Trevor stood behind Reeve's shoulder. He wasn't smirking now. Caleb saw it. His cousin-in-law was wound tight, knuckles white around the door handle of the SUV, eyes flicking between Caleb and the cabin and Ranger and back again. Reeve walked forward 6 steps, stopped at the edge of the wildflowers. He did not step on them. A man who knew not to step on flowers in front of a man whose wife had grown them. That was a man who had done his homework. Mr. Mercer, Reeve said, I represent a private group with significant investment in the medical sector. Your wife's work has come to our attention. We believe it has remarkable value. How? How what? How did it come to your attention? A pause, just a flicker. We have a number of channels, Reeve said. Researchers, doctors, people who notice things. People like Trevor. Trevor opened his mouth. Reeve raised one finger, a small movement. Trevor closed his mouth. Mr. Mercer, Reeve said, let's not make this complicated. Your wife developed something rare. Without proper resources, that work will deteriorate, be lost, or worse, be stolen by people without ethics. We are not those people. We have the resources to develop it correctly, manufacture it, distribute it, help people, many people, at scale, at a price. That is how the world works, Mr. Mercer. Yes, at a price. How much? 5 million. Caleb said nothing. Ranger's ears were forward. The dog had not moved an inch since Reeve had stepped into the clearing. The dog was reading him. Reeve smiled careful. It's a generous number, Mr. Mercer. It is. And it's a starting number. That's good to know. You'll want to discuss it with counsel. I have counsel. Reeve's eyes flicked, just once, toward the cabin. He had clocked Marlowe's car at the edge of the clearing. Caleb had seen him clock it. The man missed nothing. All right, Reeve said. Take your time. A week, 2, we're patient. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small card. White, black lettering. He held it out. Caleb did not take it. Reeve set it on a flat stone at his feet. Mr. Mercer, he said, I want to say one more thing. With respect. Go ahead. Your wife was a brilliant woman. She was also alone up here for a very long time. The work she did without proper oversight, without proper safety, without proper backing. That can be very dangerous for her patients. A pause. It would be a great pity, Reeve said, if anything she made were to harm someone in the wrong hands after she is gone, without her there to manage it. Caleb did not move. Inside his chest, the old quiet got very cold. That sounds like a threat, he said. It is not a threat, Mr. Mercer. It is a fact about products and about families and about how easily good intentions can become bad outcomes when the person who built the thing is no longer here to defend it. I understand you very clearly, Caleb said. I hoped you might. Reeve smiled. He turned. He walked back to the SUV. Trevor lingered. For a half second, he looked at Caleb. His face was doing something. Something Caleb couldn't read. Then Reeve glanced back from the driver's seat, and Trevor's face closed, and he climbed in, and the SUV pulled out of the clearing. Caleb stood there for a long time after the engine sound was gone. Ranger leaned against his leg. The dog let out one low breath. Caleb looked down at the white card on the flat stone. He did not pick it up. Marlowe was at the door when he came back in. I heard most of it, she said. Good. Caleb? Yes. That man knows what's in this cabin. Yes. He knew exactly which flowers not to step on. Yes. She sat down, hard. She rubbed her hands over her face. Trevor told him. Trevor knew the cabin, Caleb said. He didn't know the work. How do you know? Because if Trevor knew the work, Trevor would have come for the work himself. He didn't. He brought Reeve to look at it. Trevor is the door. Reeve is the man walking through. She lowered her hands. That's a seal talking. That's a husband talking. She looked at him. She nodded. Okay. That afternoon, Caleb did something he had been avoiding. He picked up the dark glass jar, ready. He brought it to the table, sat down, held it in both hands. Marlowe watched him. You don't have to, she said. I want to. Then do it carefully. I always do. She handed him a small glass. He uncorked the jar. The smell came up. Earth, honey, something bitter under it. Familiar. He poured a very small amount of water into the glass. He measured 3 drops from the jar into the water. the way the labels had taught him. He looked at Marlowe. She nodded once. He drank. It tasted exactly like Eleanor's evening tea. He sat very still. Nothing happened immediately. It never had. He waited. Marlowe waited with him. The cabin was quiet. The light was slanting now, late afternoon gold across the wooden floor. Ranger lay on his side, half asleep, half watching. And then very softly, Caleb felt it, the thing in his lower back, the tight cable that had run from his pelvis to his shoulder blade for 19 years. The cable that had decided sometime in his second deployment that it would never let go. It softened, not vanished, softened, like a fist that had been clenched too long finally remembering how to open. Caleb closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek, and he didn't even notice it for a long moment. "Mercer," Marlowe said very gently. "It's okay," he said. "I know. I know." He breathed out. It was the longest breath he had taken in years. When he opened his eyes again, the light on the cabin floor had moved a foot. He had been gone somewhere for a while. He set the small glass down. He looked at Marlowe. "It works," he said. "I know. For real." "Caleb, I know. How many people did she?" "Hundreds over the years. Most just for short stretches. About 40 long-term. She kept the long-term ones close. They were her circle." "My circle now. If you want." "I want." Marlowe smiled. Small, tired, real. "Good." That evening, Caleb went to the back of the leather notebook again. He had one more name on his list. Adelaide Doyle, blue mailbox, 40 miles south. Eleanor's note, "Go see her. When you're ready, not before." He looked at Marlowe. "There's a woman. Adelaide. You know her." "I know about her. Eleanor talked about her sometimes. She was one of the first. Maybe the first. Will you come with me?" "To Adelaide's?" "Tomorrow." Marlowe hesitated. "You should go alone," she said. "Why?" "Because she's been waiting 19 years for Eleanor's husband to come down that road, not for Eleanor's friend." He looked at her. He nodded. "Okay." That night he slept on the cot in the cabin. Ranger slept on the floor beside it. Marlowe drove back to the small motel in town where she'd left her things. Caleb did not dream. He fell into a dark and dreamless place that almost wasn't sleep, almost was, and woke at 5 in the morning with a clear head for the first time in 8 days. He brewed coffee, he fed Ranger, he laced his boots, he drove south. Adelaide Doyle's farm was right where Eleanor's note had said. 40 miles. Blue mailbox. The mailbox was hand-painted. The blue had faded. A small white flower had been painted in one corner, almost lost in the weathering. Caleb saw the flower and his hands tightened on the wheel. He turned into the gravel drive. The farmhouse was small and white. A wraparound porch, a swing on one end, a vegetable garden along the south side, brown now with autumn but still neat, still tended. A woman was on the porch. She was sitting in a rocking chair with a blanket over her lap. 70 years old, maybe a bit older. Soft white hair tied back at the nape of her neck. A long flannel shirt over a denim dress. Reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Hands folded in her lap. Hands that had worked. She watched the truck come up the drive. She did not move. Caleb stopped the truck. Got out. Ranger jumped down behind him. The woman watched the dog for a long second. Then she put her hand over her mouth. Just for a moment. Then she lowered the hand and folded it back into her lap. Caleb walked to the porch. He stopped at the bottom of the steps. "Mrs. Doyle," he said. "Addie," she said. "Please, Addie." He nodded. She looked at him a long time. He saw her eyes move over his face, his shoulders, his hands. "The way you look at a man you have heard about for 10 years. You're him," she said. "Yes, ma'am," she used to say. She used to say, "If you ever showed up on my porch with that dog, I'd know exactly who you were." She said I wouldn't even need to ask. Caleb didn't know what to say, so he just stood there. The dog walked up the porch steps slow and careful. He walked to Addie Doyle. He sat down at her feet. He laid his head on her knee. Addie's hand came down on the dog's head. She closed her eyes. A tear slid down her face. Just one. She didn't wipe it. "Hello, Ranger," she whispered. "He knows you." "He does." "How long?" 10 years. Caleb sat down on the top step. He had not meant to. He had meant to stay standing like a polite man. But his legs had different ideas, and he sat down on the top step of a stranger's porch and looked out at her brown garden. She brought him here a lot. Twice a year, for a long time, sometimes more. Why? Because I lived alone, Mercer, and she knew I missed having something to take care of. She brought him so I'd have somebody to pet. Addie laughed soft, very tired. She said he was a borrowed grandson. Caleb let his head drop. He pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. He didn't cry, but it was a near thing. Addie watched him. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just kept her hand on the dog's head. Finally, she spoke. "Your wife saved my life." "I know." "Do you?" "I read the notebook." Addie nodded. "Then you know what she did, but you don't know how, so I'll tell you. Is that all right?" "Yes, ma'am." "Addie." "Addie." She rocked her chair slow. "My husband was named Bill Doyle. He served. He came home. He never came all the way home the way some of them don't. You know what I'm talking about, Mercer?" "Yes." "He drank for a lot of years. He yelled for a lot of years. He cried at the kitchen table for a lot of years. And then one morning when I was 46, he went out to the barn one morning and he was gone." She stopped. She let it sit. She didn't need to say more. She did anyway. "After that, I didn't sleep. Not the way a person sleeps. I'd close my eyes. I'd see him. I'd see the barn. I'd see his boots. For 10 years, Mercer. 10 years of 2 hours a night. Of pills that didn't work. Of doctors who looked at me like I was glass. Of a body that forgot how to rest." She breathed in. "And then one Sunday, your Eleanor knocked on this door." Caleb lifted his head. "How did she find you?" "A neighbor, a woman 2 towns over. Eleanor had helped her shoulder. The neighbor told Eleanor about a widow 40 miles north who hadn't slept in a decade. Eleanor drove out that afternoon. She knocked on my door. She had a thermos. She said, 'I think I can help.'" Addie laughed. Wet. Real. I almost shut the door in her face. "You didn't." "No, I didn't." There was something about her, Mercer. You know what I'm talking about. "I know." "She sat on this porch. She poured me a cup. She didn't tell me what was in it. She just said, 'I think I can help.' And I drank it. And we talked. About nothing, mostly. About the garden. About a recipe for biscuits. About a wren that was nesting in the eaves." Addie looked at him. "That night I slept 7 hours." Caleb closed his eyes. 7 hours, Mercer. After 10 years. My God. It wasn't God. What? It wasn't God, Mercer. It was your wife. People like to give God credit for the work of women who would not stop trying. I love God just fine. But Eleanor did that work. Caleb laughed. He didn't mean to. It came out of him. Addie smiled. "She used to say you'd like me," she said. "She used to say I had her sense of humor about the Almighty." She was right. She was right about most things. A silence settled on the porch. Soft, warm. The light was lifting into mid-morning. A cardinal called somewhere in the yard. "Addie." "Yes." "There's a man." She stopped rocking. "What kind of man?" "His name is Jonathan Reeve. He came to the cabin yesterday. He offered me $5 million, and he told me that without him, her work might fall into the wrong hands. And it sounded like a threat." Addie did not move. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stood up. Carefully. The blanket fell to the porch boards. She walked into the farmhouse without speaking. Caleb heard her footsteps cross the hall. A drawer opened. A drawer closed. She came back out with an old shoebox. She sat down. The blanket stayed on the floor. She held the shoebox in her lap with both hands. "She gave me this," she said. 6 months ago, she drove all the way out here on a Tuesday in the rain. She gave me this, and she said, 'Addie, if anything happens to me, you find Caleb. You give him this. You do not mail it. You do not call about it. You put it in his hands. Caleb stared at the box. What's in it? I haven't opened it. I told her I wouldn't. I kept my word. He held out his hands. She set the shoebox in them. It was light. It was old. The cardboard soft. The corners rounded. Some woman's name half faded from the lid from another box, another life. Open it on the porch, Addie said. I'd like to be here. He nodded. He lifted the lid. Inside was an envelope. Thick. Sealed. Under the envelope, a small flat object wrapped in a cloth napkin. The napkin had a faded blue flower pattern. He knew that pattern. He had wiped his mouth on that pattern. It came from the drawer in his own kitchen. He set the envelope aside. He unwrapped the cloth. Inside the cloth was a small audio recorder, the kind you can buy at a drugstore. Black plastic, a single button. Old. He looked up at Addie. She nodded once. He pressed the button. A voice came out of the little speaker. Eleanor's voice. His knees almost gave. He sat down on the porch step. Hard. Ranger was already there, leaning against him, head up. Eleanor's voice was quiet, calm, the way she talked when she was concentrating. Caleb, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. And Addie kept her promise, which I knew she would. I'm so sorry. I have to tell you something, and I have to tell you fast because I'm tired today, and I don't know how many of these recordings I'm going to get to make. I think someone is poisoning me. I think I've thought so for about 3 months. I'm not certain. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, Mercer. But I'm going to act like I'm right. That's what you taught me. Plan for the worst. Hope inside the plan. I think it's a man named Jonathan Reeve. He came to me a long time ago, 11 years ago. He found me through a paper I wrote in graduate school. He wanted to work with me. He had money. He said all the right things. I worked with him for about 10 months. Then I figured out what he actually wanted, and I walked away. He kept some of my early notes. He has been trying to develop something on his own with them ever since. I don't think he's done it. I don't think he can. I think when he heard I might be close, he came back. I think he tried to talk to me first, through Trevor. Yes, Trevor. I'm sorry. Trevor and I were close as kids, Caleb. I want you to remember that. People are not just their worst moments. Trevor got into trouble years ago. Money trouble. Reeve got him out of it. Reeve has owned a piece of Trevor for about 6 years. Trevor reached out to me 3 months ago. He asked weird questions. He wanted to meet at the cabin. I said no. I think he was supposed to bring back information. I think when he couldn't, Reeve decided to take a faster road. I don't know how. I don't know what he gave me. I don't know if I can prove it. By the time you hear this, it won't matter to me anymore. But it will matter to you. And it will matter to the people who took my tea. So here is what I want you to do. 1. Marlo knows what to do legally. She has been ready for a year. Trust her. 2. Don't let Reeve buy this. Don't let him scare you. Don't let him win. 3. Trevor is afraid. He is not bad. He is afraid. If you meet him at the right moment, he will choose right. He needs someone to believe he can. You are very hard to lie to Mercer. Look him in the eye. 4. The work is not for sale. The work is for the people. All of it. I have already taken steps you don't know about yet. Trust me on that. 5. Drink your tea. I love you. Goodbye, Caleb. The recording ended. A small click. The porch was very quiet. Caleb did not move. He sat with the little black recorder in his palm like a small live thing. Then he set it down on the porch step. He set it down very gently. He put his face in his hands. He didn't cry. He had cried already in the cabin, and there was no more room in him for it right now. He just sat, with his face in his hands, until his breathing came back. Addie waited. The cardinal called again. Ranger pressed his head against Caleb's knee. After a long time, Caleb lifted his head. His face was hard now, not closed, not cold, hard the way a thing is hard when it has decided. Addie, he said. Yes. What's in the envelope? Addie looked at the envelope on the porch. I don't know, she said, but I think it's the names. What names? The other 40. He looked at her. She told you about them. She told me she had a list of 40 people who depended on her, and that if anything ever happened, the list needed to go to someone who would protect it, not sell it, protect it. You, me, until you, then you. Caleb picked up the envelope. He weighed it in his hand. He did not open it yet. He looked out at Addie's brown garden, at the cardinal flicking through the bare branches of the pear tree, at the slow drift of clouds above the porch roof. Addie, he said. Yes. How long did you know Trevor Lang? She frowned. I never met him, but she mentioned him. A few times. Was he ever here? At my farm. Anywhere near it? Addie thought about it. A few months ago, she said slowly, a man stopped at the end of the drive. Just stopped. In a black car. Took a picture of the mailbox. Drove away. Caleb's stomach turned over. What did he look like? I didn't see him close. Tall, dark coat, combed back hair. Caleb closed his eyes. He saw the lawyer's office. He saw Trevor Lang in the chair, smiling that thin smile. He saw a black SUV pulling up to a wraparound porch like this one. He saw a man taking a picture of a blue mailbox. He saw a list. He saw 40 names on it. He saw what someone like Reeve might do with those names if Caleb gave him the chance. Caleb stood up. Addie, he said, I need you to do something for me. All right. I need you to come with me, just for a little while, just until this is over. Come with you where? To the cabin, until I know who is watching this driveway. Addie looked at the brown garden for a long time. She looked at the porch. She looked at the dog. Then she stood up. She picked up the blanket. She folded it once. She set it on the rocking chair. All right, Mercer, she said. Let me get my coat. He drove back north with Addie in the passenger seat and Ranger between them and an envelope on the dashboard. He did not open the envelope. He would open it with Marlowe. He would open it with witnesses. Halfway up the highway, the sun came out from behind a long bank of cloud. Light flooded the cab. Addie closed her eyes against it. She tilted her head back against the seat. Mercer, she said. Yes, ma'am. I should tell you something. Yes. I haven't slept 7 hours since she stopped coming. The tea I had ran out 2 months ago. He looked at her. Did she know? I think she knew. I think that's why she came that Tuesday in the rain. To leave the box. To say goodbye in a way I wouldn't notice until later. I'm sorry, Addie. Don't be sorry. She left me something better than sleep. What? You. He didn't know what to say, so he just drove. It was getting dark by the time they reached the cabin. The clearing was peaceful. The white flowers had not closed yet. The cabin glowed soft and yellow through the trees because Marlowe was already there, lantern-lit, waiting. Caleb stopped the truck. He helped Addie down. Ranger jumped out and stood very still. The dog's ears were forward. Forward but not alarmed. Just attentive. Marlowe opened the cabin door and came down the step, and she saw Addie and she put her hands up to her face, and Addie saw her and she laughed soft and walked into the arms of a woman she had never met but had heard about for 8 years. Caleb stood in the clearing with the envelope in his hand and watched. And then behind him, somewhere on the edge of the wildflowers, Ranger growled. Low. Deep. Real. Caleb turned. A figure was standing at the tree line. Not Reeve. Not the SUV. Just a man. Alone. Limping. Bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Trevor Lang. He took one step into the clearing and almost fell. He caught himself. He lifted his head. His eyes were not the eyes Caleb had seen at the lawyer's office. They were terrified. Mercer, Trevor said. His voice was raw. Please, please, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill all of us. Then his knees buckled and he went down into Eleanor's wildflowers like a man falling into water. Ranger looked at Caleb. Caleb looked at Addie. Addie looked at Marlowe. Marlowe was already moving toward the man on the ground with her hands out the way doctors do when there is no time left for being scared. Behind them, the cabin lantern flickered once in a draft. The white flowers one by one began to close for the night. And somewhere very far down the dirt road that led out of the northern ridge, an engine started and waited and did not move. Marlowe moved fast. Caleb had not seen her move before. He saw it now. She crossed 20 feet of clearing in seconds, dropped to her knees beside Trevor, 2 fingers on his neck, before her bag had even hit the grass. Pulse is there, she said. Fast, he's losing some blood. Not a lot. Caleb, light. Caleb was already moving. He pulled the small headlamp from his coat, clicked it on, knelt beside her. The cut on Trevor's forehead was long but not deep. The blood had matted his hair on one side. His coat was torn at the shoulder. The fabric had a black mark across it, a scuff, like he had been thrown against something. Marlowe pressed gauze to the cut, held it. Trevor, she said, can you hear me? He blinked. His eyes were not focused. He tried to lift his head. He couldn't. Mercer, he whispered. I'm here. He knows. Knows what? Where she is. Where who is. Addie. Caleb went still. His head turned. Slow. Addie Doyle was standing on the porch step of the cabin, both hands pressed against her chest, watching. She had heard. She did not move. She did not run. She just looked at Caleb and said, I'm here, I'm fine. Trevor, Marlowe said. Stay with us. Can you walk? No. Then we carry. Caleb took Trevor's shoulders. Marlowe took his legs. They lifted him together. He was heavier than he looked. The man had lost weight, but he had never lost the long bones of the family. Eleanor's bones. Caleb felt that under his hands, and his chest tightened. They carried him into the cabin. They set him on the cot. Addie closed the door behind them. Ranger stood with his back to the door, facing the clearing, ears up, body angled. The dog had not come inside. The dog was guarding. I need light, Marlowe said, and clean water, and I need you to not panic, Trevor. Can you hear me? Look at me. I'm not panicking, Trevor said. His voice was almost steady. His hands were not. Marlowe worked. She was very calm. The kind of calm that gets practiced in places where panicking does not help anybody. Caleb knew that calm. He had it. She had it. Eleanor had had it. He held the lantern. He watched. Addie heated water on the stove. Trevor lay on the cot and stared at the ceiling. For a minute, the cabin was quiet except for the small, clean sounds of a doctor doing her work. Then Trevor said very quietly, I'm sorry. Caleb didn't answer. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Trevor, stop. I should have. I should have. I should have. Trevor. The man on the cot closed his eyes. A tear slid into his hair. He didn't wipe it. Caleb. Yes. I have to tell you everything, now, before he gets here. Before who gets here? You know who. Caleb set the lantern down. He pulled up the second chair. He sat by the cot. Talk. Trevor talked. He talked fast, like a man trying to outrun the thing he was confessing. I owed money, a long time ago. I'm not going to make it pretty. I owed money to people who hurt people. I was 38. I was stupid. I was scared. I went to Reeve. He was a guy I knew from college. He had money, real money. He paid them off. He said it was nothing. He said it was a favor. He said, don't even think about it. Trevor laughed. The laugh hurt. It was not nothing. He owned you, Caleb said. He owned me. How? Information mostly. For years, little things, where so-and-so was eating, who so-and-so was sleeping with. He sells access. Mercer. He sells access to people who think they're getting something. He's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He's a man who finds people who actually do the work and figures out how to take it. Trevor breathed in. The breath shook. And then about 10 months ago, he came to me. He sat down at a bar I was at like it was a coincidence, even though I knew it wasn't. He said, Trev, your cousin Eleanor, is she still doing her little plant project? Caleb's hands closed into fists on his knees. He made them open again. What did you say? I said I didn't know. Did you know? I knew she was working on something. She'd mentioned it once at a family thing 3 years before. She was happy that day. She talked too much. She said something about being close to a real breakthrough. I remembered. He remembered too, I think. Trevor swallowed. I think he had been waiting. For what? For her to finish. The cabin was very still. Trevor's voice went smaller. He asked me to find out where she was working. I said no. He said, Trev, do you remember 2017? Which was the year? The year he paid them off. He said, I have receipts. I have texts. I have signed paper. If I send those to the right person, you go to prison. So just find out where she's working. Just that. Trevor was crying now. Quiet. The way ashamed men cry. I followed her, Mercer, twice. I followed my own cousin into the woods. She never saw me. Or maybe she did. Maybe she saw me and didn't want to embarrass me. That would be her, wouldn't it? She would let me get away with it because she felt sorry for me. Caleb didn't answer. Addie was at the stove. Her back was to the room. She was wiping a teacup with a dish towel. The cup did not need wiping anymore. She kept wiping it. I told him where the cabin was, Trevor said. I told him there was a cabin. I told him about the dog. I told him she came up here on weekends. That's all I told him, that's all. I didn't tell him about the work. I didn't even know about the work, Caleb. I didn't know. I didn't know. But he knew. He guessed. He guesses well. He's been guessing right for 20 years. And then she got sick. Trevor closed his eyes. And then she got sick. Trevor, I didn't know that part. I swear to God, I did not know that part. Trevor, I didn't. I believe you, Caleb said, which was strange, because the words came out of his mouth before his brain checked them. Except they were true, because Trevor's face right now was not the face of a man lying. Trevor's face was the face of a man who had been carrying something that was eating him alive and who was finally setting it down on a stranger's porch. Eleanor had been right. He is not bad. He is afraid. Caleb breathed out. What happened tonight, he said. I went to his office. In the city, I tried to. I tried to make him stop. I told him you said no. I told him you weren't going to sell. I told him to walk away. And he laughed. And he told me he had 2 men driving up tonight to talk to you. Talk, he said, talk like it was a word for something else. Caleb's eyes went to the door. How long ago? He told me at maybe 4, I think. I lost time after he hit me. I think it's been 3 hours. Maybe 4. Mercer. They're coming. They might already be here. Caleb stood. He looked at Marlo. She was already taping the gauze on Trevor's head. Her hands were not shaking. Marlo, I'm with you. Addie, I'm with you too. He looked at her, a 70-year-old woman in a flannel shirt standing in the middle of a cabin in the woods looking at him with steady eyes. Addie, you don't have to. Mercer, yes. My husband was a Marine. I have been with men I love when they did hard things. I am not going anywhere. Caleb's eyes filled. He turned away so she wouldn't see. He walked to the door of the cabin. He opened it 6 inches. He looked out into the clearing. Ranger had not moved. The dog's ears were forward. Far down the dirt road, faint, almost inaudible. The sound of an engine. 2 engines. Caleb closed the door. He turned back to the room. He said, okay. He said, I have an idea. Here is what Caleb Mercer did. He did not pick up a gun. He had a gun. In the truck. In a steel box under the driver's seat. He had carried it for 19 years. He left it in the truck. He did not pick up a knife. He did not turn off the lights. He turned on the lights. All of them. He had Marlo get her laptop from her bag. He had Addie carry the small wooden box and the leather notebook and Eleanor's audio recorder to the table and lay them out like a museum exhibit. He had Trevor sit upright on the cot, pale and bandaged. He went to the corner of the cabin. He reached behind a row of jars on a high shelf. He pulled down a small black plastic object, then another, then another. 3 small wireless cameras, his own, from the truck. He had set them up that morning after breakfast after coffee before Marlo had said one word about evidence. He had set them up because his old habits had not died, and his old habits told him that any place worth defending was a place worth seeing. He had aimed one at the door, one at the table, one at the shelf of jars. He had paired them with his phone. He had told no one. He sat down at the table now. He opened the phone. He confirmed all 3 cameras were live. He confirmed they were recording. He confirmed they were uploading to a cloud account Marlo did not know about, and a backup account Trevor did not know about, and a third account his old SEAL teammate in Virginia did not know about, but would be notified of automatically the second the upload started. He had set this up that morning. He had set this up because the man in the cemetery had been watching, because Reeve had not stepped on the wildflowers, because Eleanor had taped a small recorder under a cloth napkin and given it to a widow, because a wife who plans is a wife you should listen to even after she's gone. He looked up at Marlo. Pull up your email. My email. Yes. She pulled it up. Write a draft. Don't send. Subject line for immediate release. She blinked. She wrote it. Recipients. He gave her a list. 3 reporters at 3 different national papers. 2 editors at scientific journals. The general inbox of the FBI field office in Albany. The general inbox of the state attorney general. 11 names, 3 of which Caleb did not have the addresses for. Marlo filled them in from memory. Eleanor had given her this list too a year ago. Of course she had. Attach a placeholder file, Caleb said. She did. Now copy a link to the live cloud stream. Put it in the body. She did that too. Save the draft. Don't send. She saved it. He turned to Addie. Addie, I am going to ask you to do one thing. Yes. When I say the word flowers, you are going to walk to that phone which Marlo will hand to you, and you are going to press send. That is all. Marlo will be busy. You will press send. Okay. Flowers, I press send. Yes, ma'am. Mercer. Yes. I have been pressing send on things my whole life. I will not miss. He almost smiled. He almost did. Outside, the engines got closer. Ranger came in from the porch. The dog stood next to Caleb, pressed his shoulder against Caleb's leg, lifted his face once. Easy, boy, Caleb said. Ranger settled. Caleb walked to the door. He opened it wide. He stepped back inside. He left the door open. He sat down at the table. He poured 5 cups of water from the kettle, 3 drops from a dark glass jar into none of them. He just poured the water. He set the cups on the table, like a man laying a place setting for guests. He looked at Trevor. Are you up for this? I am, Trevor said. You don't have to be. I am Caleb. Okay. Caleb sat back. Outside, 2 SUVs pulled to a stop at the edge of the wildflowers. Doors opened. 2 men got out of each, 4 men total. Big men, quiet men, coats, boots, not flashy. The kind of men you hire when you don't want to be the one in the room. Then the back door of the second SUV opened, and Jonathan Reeves stepped out. He was wearing the same black coat from yesterday. He was wearing his hair the same way. He was smiling the same way. Except, tonight the smile reached his eyes. That was the only difference. A man whose smile reaches his eyes when he is about to do violence is a man who likes violence. Caleb made a small note of it. Inside, where the cold quiet lived. Reeve walked across the clearing. He stepped over the wildflowers this time, carefully. His 4 men spread out, 2 near the SUVs, 2 flanking him. He stopped at the door of the cabin. He looked in. He saw Caleb at the table. He saw Marlo at the laptop. He saw Addie standing by the stove. He saw Trevor on the cot. His smile widened. Mercer, he said, you have a house full. Come in, Mr. Reeve. Are you sure? I insist. Reeve looked at his men. He held up one hand. Stay. He stepped inside. He did not look at the cameras. He did not see them. That was the thing about Reeve. He looked at people and at money and at exit routes. He did not look at high shelves. He looked at Trevor. Trev, he said, you look terrible. Yeah, Trevor said. I noticed. What are you doing here? Apologizing. To who? To everyone. Reeve laughed, soft, disappointed. Trev, 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 you did this to yourself. I told you what I told you. I know what you told me. And yet here you are. And yet here I am. Reeve sighed. He turned to Caleb. Mr. Mercer, I had hoped we could conduct this evening more privately. I do apologize for the inconvenience of bringing additional staff. I find that complicated negotiations are often easier when there is no audience. So I will ask the ladies to step outside. Caleb said no. 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 Mr. Mercer, they stay. Reeve looked at him a long moment. All right. He sat down, in the chair Caleb had set out for him, at the table. He looked at the cups of water. He looked at the laid-out notebook. He looked at the audio recorder. His eyes went to the recorder, just for half a second. He recovered fast. Mr. Mercer, I would like to ask you one more time to consider my offer. With improved terms, 10 million, cash, this evening, by wire, to any account you name. That's a lot of money, Caleb said. It is. Why so much? Because the product is valuable. How do you know it's valuable? Reeve smiled. Mr. Mercer, we are both grown men. Let us not pretend. Indulge me. I beg your pardon. Tell me how you know, Caleb said, that what's in this cabin is valuable. A pause, a small flicker. Reeve glanced once at Trevor. Quick, almost not there. My sources, he said. Like Trevor. Trevor is not a source. He's not. Trevor is family. Funny, Caleb said. He's not your family, he's mine. Reeve's smile thinned. Mr. Mercer. Mr. Reeve. Are we going to do this? We are. All right. Reeve folded his hands on the table. Then let me speak plainly. Your wife, God rest her, was a brilliant amateur. Her work, while interesting, was the work of a woman in a shack in the woods with no oversight, no peer review, no real understanding of pharmacology or scale. Her results were anecdotal. Her samples were unstable. Her notes were charming but unprofessional. Left alone, this work will not survive her. It will rot here in this cabin with these dried plants, and it will help nobody. With me and the resources I command, it will become a real medicine. Bottled, manufactured, distributed, approved, helping millions. That is the only future this work has, the only one. He paused. And there is another reason. Caleb said nothing. You see, Mr. Mercer, I worked with your wife. A long time ago, I was in fact the first person to recognize the value of what she was attempting. She and I worked together for nearly a year. The early framework, the foundational chemistry that came from our partnership. She left. She took ideas that were in part mine. I have been patient. I have been more than patient. I waited 11 years for her to finish. And now that she has, I am simply asking for what is frankly mine to begin with. Caleb leaned back in his chair. You're saying she stole from you. I am saying we shared an enterprise and she chose to continue it alone, and that her share of that work is by some readings our share. Yes. That's interesting. Is it? Because in her notes there is no Jonathan Reeve. Reeve smiled. Of course not. At all. I am not surprised. In all 12 years of work, in her sketchbook, in her first journal, in her last journal, in the letters she wrote to her friend Dr. Cross, in any private correspondence. Caleb let it sit. You're not in any of it, because she was meticulous about removing me. Or what? Or you were never in any of it. Reeve's smile got tighter. Mr. Mercer, are you accusing me of? I am asking a question. It sounds like an accusation. Mr. Reeve, my wife had heavy metal poisoning. The cabin went still. Reeve's smile did not move, but something behind his eyes did. I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Mercer. Are you? I am. Mr. Reeve, did you poison my wife? A beat. Reeve laughed, soft, surprised, like a man humoring a child. Mr. Mercer, that is an extraordinary thing to say. It's an extraordinary situation. You are grieving. I am. You are looking for someone to blame. I am looking at someone. Mr. Mercer, did you, Mr. Reeve? Did you have someone put something in her food, or in her air, or in her water? Did you give that order? Over the last 6 months. Reeve looked at him. The smile faded. It didn't snap off. It thinned. It cooled. It became the thing it had been hiding behind all along, which was just a long, slow, patient cruelty. "Mr. Mercer," he said quietly, "let me explain something to you about the world." "Please." "In this world, products that take 11 years to develop are not the property of one woman. They are the property of the system that allows that woman to work in safety. I provided that system for your wife. I provided seed funding. I provided early connections. I provided protection. I provided a future. She walked away from that future. She took the work and she pretended she had built it alone. She had not. And so, yes, Mr. Mercer, when she got close to finishing what was always going to be ours, I made certain decisions about how to bring her back to the table. Some of those decisions were medical. They were intended to bring her in for treatment with our doctors. That treatment would have included a renegotiation of her position. She refused to come in. She made her own choices. She made her death her own choice, Mr. Mercer." He said it calmly, like a man reading a contract clause out loud. Caleb did not move. He did not look away. He did not even blink. Across the cabin, Addie Doyle's hand moved to the phone. Slow, steady. Marlowe's eyes flicked once to the high shelf and back. Trevor sat very still on the cot. Reeves smiled small. "And there it is, Mr. Mercer. The truth, since you wanted it so badly. Now please, let us speak about the terms of the sale. 12 million. Wired tonight. The notebooks, the samples, the recordings, all of it. And we will conclude this matter." Caleb sat very still for one long second. Then he said flowers. Addie pressed send. Reeve frowned. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I said flowers, Mr. Reeve." "Flowers." "Yes." Caleb stood up. "Mr. Reeve, in the last 8 minutes, 3 cameras in this cabin have been recording our conversation. 2 of them have been streaming live to a secured cloud account managed by Dr. Cross. The third has been streaming to a personal account belonging to a man named Daniel Hayes, who is a retired Navy SEAL, a current employee of a private security firm in Virginia, and a personal friend of mine. He has been watching since you stepped into the clearing." Reeve stared at him. "And in the last 40 seconds, an email containing the link to that live stream has been sent to 11 recipients. 3 of them are reporters. 2 are editors at scientific journals. 1 is the FBI field office in Albany. 1 is the New York Attorney General's office. The others are doctors and lawyers who will know what to do with the file." He took a small breath. "You just confessed, Mr. Reeve, to my wife's murder, on camera, to 11 witnesses, in real time." The cabin went quiet. Reeve sat very still. Then he started to laugh. A small laugh, almost charming. Then the laugh stopped. Then his face changed. And then Jonathan Reeve, who had spent 20 years smiling, did something he had probably not done in a long time. He stood up fast. He knocked the table. The cups of water rocked. He turned for the door. "Boys," he called. "Boys." Then several things happened at once. Trevor Lang, who had been sitting on the cot pretending to be weaker than he was, came off the cot in a single hard movement. His shoulder hit the inside of Reeve's chest. Reeve went down sideways. Hard. He landed half on the wooden floor and half on the table. Ranger was on him before he could get up. The dog did not bite. The dog stood over him. 80 pounds of black and tan teeth bared all 4 feet braced. The dog had been trained for this exact situation. The dog remembered. Reeve froze. "Don't move, Mr. Reeve," Caleb said quietly. "He does not want to bite you. He is also a working dog. He will bite you." Outside, the 4 men were already moving for the cabin. They got 8 feet before headlights came up the dirt road behind them. Many headlights, 3 trucks, 2 state police cruisers. Daniel Hayes, the retired SEAL from Virginia, had not been kidding when he set up alerts. Daniel Hayes had also, it turned out, called the local sheriff the moment the stream started, because Daniel Hayes had read Caleb's old careful texts about a cousin in a black SUV and a cemetery. And Daniel Hayes was not a man who waited to be asked. The 4 hired men looked at each other. They looked at the cruisers. They put their hands on their heads. They sat down in the wildflowers. Inside, Trevor stood up off Reeve and stumbled. His leg gave. Marlowe caught him. "Trev." "I'm okay." You're not okay. I'm fine, Doc. You opened your stitches. Of course I did. She lowered him onto the chair. Addie was already at the cot with a fresh cloth. Caleb walked to where Reeve lay on the floor under Ranger. He crouched down. He looked Reeve in the eye. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he said, "My wife loved a lot of people, Mr. Reeve, including, I think, a younger version of you. I don't know who that man was, but this one is going to prison." Reeve did not answer. Caleb stood. He walked to the door. He opened it. He met the deputies as they came across the wildflowers, and he raised his hands above his head, slow and clear, and watched as the night filled up with flashing red light and steady boots and a kind of quiet that only comes after the worst thing in your life has finally finished. The hospital was small, white walls, soft chairs, the smell of disinfectant and old coffee. Caleb sat in a hallway chair for most of the night. He didn't sleep. He hadn't been planning to. Around 3 in the morning, a nurse touched his shoulder. "Mr. Lang is asking for you." Trevor's room was at the end of the hall. He was sitting up. His head was bandaged. His shoulder was bandaged. His face was gray. He looked, Caleb thought, like a man who had set down something he had been carrying for years. "Hey," Trevor said. "Hey. You okay?" "I'm okay, you?" "I'll live." "Yes." A silence. Trevor looked at the ceiling. "Caleb." "Yes. I want you to do something for me. Anything. Don't visit me after this. For a while." "Why?" "Because I have to live with myself before I can sit across a table from you, and I need to do that alone. For a while." Caleb sat down in the chair by the bed. He didn't speak. He put his hand on his cousin-in-law's arm. Just for a second. Trevor closed his eyes. A tear slid down the side of his face. He didn't wipe it. "She forgave me," he whispered. "In the recording. Didn't she?" "She did." "Why?" "Because she was Eleanor." Trevor laughed. It hurt him. He laughed anyway. "Yeah," he said, "because she was Eleanor." 2 weeks later, in the small office of the State Attorney General's regional liaison, Marlowe Cross opened a folder. Inside the folder was the contents of the envelope Addie Doyle had handed to Caleb on her porch. 40 names, 40 addresses, 40 short paragraphs in Eleanor's small, careful hand describing each person, their condition, what had helped them, and what should happen if she could not help them anymore. And on the last page, a single typed letter signed and notarized 2 months before Eleanor's death. The letter assigned the full intellectual property of her work in perpetuity to a nonprofit research consortium of 7 institutions, 4 in the United States, 3 abroad. Each institution had already received by certified mail a complete copy of her notebooks. Each institution had already signed a binding agreement preventing any private acquisition of the work. Each institution had agreed to make any treatment derived from her research available at cost to veterans and their families. She had done all of this 6 months before she died. She had done it knowing. Caleb sat with the letter in his hand for a long time. He thought about Reeve in a cell upstate awaiting trial. He thought about Reeve's company already collapsing under the weight of subpoenas. He thought about a man at the edge of a cemetery in a dark coat 60 yards back watching in the long, quiet road from there to here. He thought about Eleanor sitting at the kitchen table with a typewriter and a notary 3 months into being slowly poisoned, deciding to spend her remaining time making absolutely sure that no one could ever buy what she had made. He put the letter down. He looked at Marlowe. "She won," he said. "She won, Caleb. Before any of it started, she won." Spring came late that year. The clearing in the northern ridge held its snow longer than usual. When it finally went, the wildflowers came back fast the way they do when the season has been waiting. Caleb built a small extension on the cabin. 2 rooms, one for Marlowe when she came up, one for Addie, who came up most weekends now and was teaching Caleb how to make biscuits the right way. The Eleanor Mercer Foundation opened a small office in Cedar Hollow. The sign was hand-painted. It said in plain black letters, "For the people who served," and the people who waited for them to come home. Trevor came up to the cabin in June. He stayed 3 days. He helped Caleb fix a fence. They didn't talk about Reeve. They didn't need to. On the last day, Trevor sat on the cabin step with his cousin-in-law and looked out across the clearing. "She would have liked this," he said. "Yeah, that you let me come up." "Yeah, thank you." Stop thanking me, Trevor. I will, soon. Okay, then keep thanking me. Trevor laughed. He laughed in a way Caleb had not heard him laugh. Then he wiped his eyes and watched the bees move through the wildflowers. By autumn, the cabin had become something Caleb had not expected. It had become a place people came to. Not patients, not exactly. The foundation had real offices for that, with real doctors, and the treatments were happening through approved channels at the 7 institutions. But people still came. Veterans mostly. Widows. Quiet people. They came because they had read about Eleanor Mercer in the papers, or they had heard about her from a friend at the VA, and they wanted to see the place where she had worked. Caleb met them at the road. He walked them up the path. He showed them the wildflowers. He told them what she had done. He did not let anyone pity her. He did not let anyone romanticize her either. He said she was a woman who saw her husband hurting, and she decided not to wait for permission to help him. She failed for a long time. She got up every morning and tried again. She helped people without telling them. She kept records so the help would survive her. And when somebody tried to take it from her, she made sure he couldn't. That's who she was. She wasn't a saint. She was just a woman who would not stop. A lot of the visitors cried at that part. Caleb let them. He had learned how. Addie was there on the last warm afternoon of October. She was sitting on the porch in a rocking chair Caleb had built her, a blanket over her lap, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, a cup of tea on the small table beside her. Marlo was inside, working. She had taken a teaching post at a university 3 hours away, and she came up most weekends with a stack of grading and a fresh pot of coffee. Caleb was on the steps. Ranger lay across his boots, one eye open, one eye closed, the way only old dogs and content dogs lie. A bird called somewhere in the high pines. Caleb opened the small wooden box on his lap. He took out the last letter. He had been saving it. He had read all the others, all of Eleanor's quick notes and longer pages, and the 100 small things she had written him over the months. This was the very last one, the one she had labeled in her clean small hand for after. He had not known what after meant for a long time. He thought he knew now. He unfolded the page. Eleanor's handwriting. He read it slow. Mercer. If you are reading this, it is autumn, and the worst of it is over, and Ranger is asleep on your boots. Hi, I love you. A few things. 1. Forgive Trevor. I know you have. I know you, Mercer. I just want it on paper. People are not just their worst moments. 2. Let Marlo push you. She is going to push you about teaching and about traveling and about whether you should let some young veteran with a bad back stay in the cabin for a few weeks at a time. Let her push. She is right about all of it. 3. Take Addie biscuit recipes seriously. I know she pretends not to measure. She measures. She just measures in her head. Watch her hands. 4. You are going to outlive me by a long time, Mercer. That is the deal we made when you came home from your last deployment. I made you promise. You promised. You don't get to back out. 5. I want you to know something. About the tea, about the 12 years, about all of it. I did not do it because I was afraid you would die without it. You weren't going to die. You were strong. You would have lived through your back and through your nights and through everything just as you always have. I did not do it because I had to. I did it because I wanted to. I wanted to put something good into the hand of the man I loved every single evening for the rest of his life and watch his shoulders go a little soft and know that just for a minute he was being held. That was a gift I gave myself. Not just you. I'm telling you so that when you sit on the cabin step in the autumn light with the dog on your boots and Addie on the porch and the clearing full of late flowers, you will know. Nothing about it was a sacrifice. All of it was love. Drink your tea, Mercer. Eleanor. Caleb sat with the letter in his hand for a long time. The wind moved through the pines. The bees were slower now in the late light. They moved through the last of the wildflowers like old men doing one more round of work before bed. Ranger sighed in his sleep. Caleb closed the letter. He folded it gently. He put it back in the box. He sat on the step of his dead wife's cabin in the woods in the country in the autumn and looked out across the clearing. His back did not hurt. The world was very quiet. His eyes were wet. He smiled. Yeah, he said softly. Okay, Nora. He stood up, he went inside, he made tea. He brought a cup out to Addie on the porch. He sat down next to her. They watched the light fade. Somewhere in the high pines, the wind moved. And somewhere in 7 cities around the world, in 7 research libraries, with 7 careful copies of a careful woman's careful work, the long, quiet job of saving lives continued. Without fanfare, without name, the way she would have wanted, the way she had planned all along.